prepared for my CBT in 2 weeks and I aced the exam. Believe me, I totalized the exam. To be honest with you, when I went for my own CBT exam, I was just clicking throughout the exam. It was just click. Welcome back, guys, to part 2 of the Nmc CBT test. Today we are going to be looking at tips and tricks on how to prepare for your Nmc CBT and pass in one go. Before we start, there's one thing that I need to tell you. The strongest factor for success is self-esteem. Believing you can do it, believing you deserve it, and believing you will get it. So we are going to nail this Nmc CBT test after this video because we believe in ourselves. We can all do it. I've done it, of course.
Alright, they asking for the queen. I'm a bad bitch, she's a savage. Look back while I twerk. No comparison.
I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet, yeah. Sassy, moody, nasty, yeah. Acting stupid, what was happening, bitch? What was happening, bitch?
So guys, did you listen to the webinar for the CBT changes for 2021? If you haven't listened to them, go and listen to them because there is very important information there. But one thing which I took out of it is that they actually said the things which are still relevant in the current CBT, they are bringing them forward to the next CBT. You know that certain things never change. If you're looking at things like drug, they never change. So if you are clever, you go to the Pearson view. Anyway, I've put the links in my description. You go to the Pearson view and look at those tests, look at the drug calculations and everything. Anything which is said to be relevant in the current CBT, they're still going to bring it in your exam. So which means contained in the questions which are in the Pearson View website right now are part of the questions for the current CBT. That's what it simply means. Anyway, so when it comes to this CBT, guys, what you have to know is, like we said last time, we said CBT is an exam which is designed to test your knowledge and abilities to work safely as a nurse in UK. So which means you already have existing knowledge. You obviously can't practice as a nurse without the knowledge or the background of nursing. So the tip number 1 that I'm going to tell you is, before you touch any book, before you touch any textbook, assess how much knowledge are you still retaining in your brain, just to prove that you don't have an empty brain. I'm joking. Anyway, just to prove how much knowledge you still have. Anyway, what I did personally is I took 4 past exams which are said to be past exams because NMC does not approve that they are past exams. I wrote them, I marked for myself. After writing and marking for myself, I checked which questions I got correct and which ones I got wrong. It gives you an idea of how much effort you need to put in and how much you need to push. CBT is divided into 4 sessions. These sessions are professional values, communication and interpersonal skills, nursing practice and decision making, and leadership and management and teamwork. So what I basically did was I split CBT into 2. I split it into the nurse and I split it into the patient. So what you're basically doing is you're going to pretend to be admitting an adult patient to, for example, a dementia unit. And that format of the admission of an adult covers the whole CBT. So when you are admitting a patient, you do a holistic needs assessment. So in the holistic needs assessment, Normally, where I work, we've got 16 specific needs for adults, and I'll get into maybe just 6 or 7 of them, so that you have a rough idea on how you can use those needs for your CBT. So you basically use those needs to come up with questions, and those questions are the very questions that you are going to use the recommended CBT material to read on those questions. First and foremost, when you're admitting someone, you are going to do the vital observations. So you need to know the parameters for the vital observations. For example, in a hospital, you would use a news score. You need to know what is a news score, what is news scoring, what are the abnormalities, when do I escalate, and things like that. The first need that we look at when we are admitting an adult patient is consent, capacity, and rights. So what I did was, I wanted to find out what is consent, what entails a consent, what is capacity, what are the laws which are used for capacity, what are the rights of an adult. Then you look at things like drug therapies and medication. You ask yourself, what laws are in place in UK with regards to drug administration? If I'm looking at this adult that I'm admitting, if I'm assessing him according to the levels of drug administration, is he able to administer medication? Is he not? What level do I put him in? Does he have any allergies? If he's allergic to penicillin, if he has an anaphylactic reaction, how am I going to manage that patient? Third need, you're looking at things like mobility. When you are looking at an adult and you're assessing mobility needs, you ask yourself, I've admitted Mr. Jones here. Does he need assistance with mobility? Does he need a wheelchair? Does he need a rollator? Does he need crutches? Does he need a walking stick? And if they are going to be using any of those things, how am I going to be assisting them as a nurse to actually safely use those things? Simple as that. And then, is he at risk of falls? If he falls, how am I going to manage the fall? Does he need a crash mat? Does he need an alarm bell? How am I going to prevent falls? Need number 4, I'm looking at nutrition. If I'm assessing a patient who has nutritional needs, I'm asking myself, is he able to drink? Is he able to swallow? Is his weight okay? The tools that we use, I'm using the MAST Universal Screening Tool. What is a MAST Universal Screening Tool? How do I identify that this one has got malnutrition? What measures am I going to put in place to prevent malnutrition? Who am I going to consult if this patient has got malnutrition? So these are the care plans that you're going to be writing for someone that you're admitting. And that is CBT, guys. That is CBT. Look at needs like infection control. Obviously, the way you do infection prevention and control in your country is different from infection prevention and control in UK. You now want to find out, how do they manage a patient? Maybe let's say it's coronavirus. How do they manage a patient with coronavirus? How do they isolate? What bags do they use to discard their linen? What color of bags do they use for infectious linen? What color of bags do they use for non-infectious linen? What color of bags do they use for clinical waste? And things like that. Let me move on to the last need, for example, end of life. When you're admitting your resident, in the end of life, you are asking yourself your questions like, does this person have a do not attempt resuscitation order? What is a do not attempt resuscitation order? What are we going to do if this person has a cardiac arrest? What is a cardiac arrest and how do I manage a cardiac arrest? So you see, guys, if you use the format of the needs assessment that you use to admit, whether it's an adult patient or it's a pediatric patient or it's a midwifery patient or it's a psychiatric patient, that format that you use to admit them using the needs assessment is what is going to help you pass your Nmc Cbt. Because after doing that holistic needs assessment, where you are looking at the individual as a whole and you are looking at everything that they need as an individual. You take all those needs and then you move to the textbook and you start answering those questions. At the end of the day, when you have answered those questions, believe me, you'll be so knowledgeable. Most of the time they tell you to go and read the Royal Marsden. Royal Marsden is a very big book. You cannot read it from start to finish with the hope of passing your exam. So the strategy that you can employ for you to be able to read your Royal Marsden is to use a needs assessment form. So in my description box, I'm going to list all the needs that we use when we are admitting adults. I was going to add flash to all of the needs, but it will make the video way too long, you see. But I'm sure you now have a rough idea on how you actually approach CBT. Then we have looked at the patient and we have looked at their needs as a whole. Now we are looking at yourself as the nurse. When we are looking at you as the nurse, you are asking yourself questions like, you want to join the NMC register. What is NMC? What are the requirements for you to stay in the register? There is the NMC code. What is the NMC code? You see, like when you look at the material that you are given to read, you are actually given the NMC code. You have to know the NMC code, what is really required from you by the NMC. You see, from there we look at the nurse, when the nurse is in the position of a leader, because you are also looking at leadership and management in CBT. So basically what we are doing is, if we are looking at leadership and management, we want to know, if I, the nurse, am a leader, what are the characteristics of a good leader? What are the leadership styles that I'm going to employ? What leadership styles can I use to keep staff happy and satisfied? So another thing, when you are preparing yourself for CBT, you have to look at yourself, the nurse, in a supervisory role. Obviously, when you are a nurse, you are going to be supervising different cadres. You are going to be delegating different cadres, and you need to know what is supervision, what is delegation, what are the principles of delegation. If I'm delegating my staff, what are the things and measures that I'm supposed to follow? So guys, when it comes to CBT, you are basically asking yourself questions and answering those questions. And after answering those questions, you are ready for the exam. It is simple as that. Before you touch any textbook, it's important that you ask yourself all those questions. You jot down all the questions that you want to ask yourself. And you only look at the questions that we can say are the most relevant questions to CBT. I've given you examples of the questions that you ask yourself, and then from there you can actually now go to the recommended study material. Like if you look at the NMC blueprint, they actually state what recommended, what material they recommend for you and what material you can actually use for your exam. You see, most of the time they say that you should read all of Royal Marsden, but it really doesn't make sense. It's difficult to read Royal Marsden and go through all of it. But if you now have questions, like for example, if you've got questions on needs assessment, you now know that, okay, I'm going to Royal Marsden, I'm going to check on what consent is, I'm going to check on what capacity is, how are things different in UK, and things like that. You get it? It is very simple and very easy, guys. Sometimes you might ask questions, but what if I fail the exam? Failing the exam doesn't necessarily mean that you are dull. I don't know whether that's the proper term to use. Okay, failing the exam doesn't necessarily mean that you are not knowledgeable. Sometimes you could have made a mistake maybe on the critical questions, you see. And the beauty of it is that you always have another chance to resit. So guys, without a shadow of a doubt, if you use those steps, use your needs assessment, I guarantee you are definitely going to pass your CBT. By the way guys, on my last video I had said I'm going to touch on Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is just anyway, it's not in this current CBT, but it's in the next CBT. But what they are basically saying is questions are placed in different categories. I'll give you just at least 3 examples. For example, there is knowledge. So knowledge, they're simple, asking you questions to see if you can remember things that you learned. So it's just a matter of remembering things that you learned. And then there is comprehensions, which are going to require you to demonstrate understanding of the subject matter. Also have things like analysis, where you are given a situation and you're supposed to critically analyze the situation and come up with answers to the questions. And then you're also given things like, you're also given questions on evaluation, where you're just evaluating your nursing care. So for now guys, I'll just briefly touch on the Bloom's taxonomy, since the exam is only coming in August anyway. Should you want me to get more into the details of the Bloom's taxonomy and the other needs assessment, the kind of questions that you can ask yourself on your needs assessment, maybe I might make another video. Comment down below. So guys, if you employ these strategies that I've said to you, you are definitely going to pass your CBT. I prepared for my CBT in 2 weeks and I aced the exam. Believe me, I totalized the exam. Even if I didn't see the result myself, I know that I totalized it. That's just me. So if you employ these strategies, you are also going to totalize the exam. Don't forget to set that challenge for yourself and go and practice the CBT questions so that you evaluate how much knowledge you have. If you found this video helpful, kindly like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I've got an interesting video coming next, so subscribe so that you don't miss it. Thank you so much for watching guys. I will see you in my next video.